Couldn't be more excited to have to be here with you, Lenore, and to have Max, the marriage mediator, joining us. Couldn't be more excited to have you both agreed on the importance of mediation, whether it's marriage or whether it's divorce. And I'm just curious if you all want to just share a little bit of how you met, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. So I met Max when I attended a symposium that was unique, that was called Make Divorce Healthier, which was run by the same people that brought you and me together, Pam. And I remember sitting down at a roundtable discussion, and Max, and I'm you're going to explain this better than I am, Max, but you said something to the effect that there are five unmet or forbidden needs that each person develops by the time they're 5 years old, and that motivates them in their relationships throughout their lives, and they don't even realize it. And when he said that, I'm like, that makes perfect sense. Now I really understand why people are getting divorced. So, and that is just a kernel of the information and knowledge and skill set, Max, that I know you're
here with you, Lenore, and to have Max. Yeah.
Yeah, so the subtitle of my book is How Your Unmet Needs Choose Your Partner, Fuel Your Arguments, and Reveal the Love That's Hidden in those same old arguments. So, like a lot of people, I had a bunch of relationships that went off the rails no matter what I tried to do with my willpower, with my brain, or with my heart, because I didn't understand what was going on. And I think the reason that you invited me here is because the technology that I use explains what's going on. Whether or not that's going to take you deeper into committing to the marriage or realizing it doesn't make sense for this to be our primary relationship because of what's going on, because of the needs that are driving us. And it was really Marshall Rosenberg and NVC Nonviolent Communication that was the technology that I used in my marriage. I married my wife when I was 50, my first and only wife. And we became mediators together while we were dating. I highly recommend that. It's a fun weekend together, and our communication got way better. Our fights ended up not being fights, they ended up being mediations, negotiations. And in small claims court, where we were practicing at the time, we were trying to share what we were doing with our clients, because in small claims court, everybody knows each other. Mm-hmm. And once you know how this works, you can see that if people knew, like even just the skills of mediation, they could resolve so many. They could see that conflict is your relationship trying to go deeper, that both of you are trying to get something you really need, what I call a forbidden need, and don't know how to speak about that. And if you don't get the benefit of difference, which, by the way, is what relationship is about. Relationship is about difference. You already have you. Mm-hmm. You bring somebody into your life who is not you, who is different than you. And in the beginning, during the infatuation stage, you're getting such benefit from the difference. They see things different than you do. They know how to meet needs effortlessly that you struggle with. It's just wonderful being with this difference. A football team that had 12 of the best quarterbacks in the league and no one else wouldn't win a single game. What we need is the benefit of difference. If you don't get the benefit of difference, you get conflict. So in my model, if you're in conflict, it's kind of a good thing. It means that you've gotten to that place, a really deep place, where your relationship is trying to go to the next level deeper. But there's two things in the way. One is old hurts, which create both terror in both of you. And the other is not having the skills to be able to do the next level of intimacy. Because if you do resolve your differences, you will get to more intimacy. Intimacy in my model is the word can be broken into the sentence, into me you see. intimacy. And so when you're going deeper, you're showing more deeper inside yourself to the other person. And it takes more skill to communicate that, to listen to that, especially to listen to the difference. And so without that skill set, those moments of intimacy turn into conflict and separation. And so the practice that my wife and I, Two Rivers, Max Rivers and Louise Rivers, we formed this mediation program to teach couples the skills. So we don't do that much resolving people's skills because I don't want to give them the fish. I want to teach them the fish. So we really teach them about how this unconscious need thing is operating, using whatever they bring to the table, what their conflict, what feels like their conflict to them, to me looks like what's on the table here is the next level of intimacy. And I take the skills they have, look for the holes in their skill set, add them in, and I guarantee my first session, I can take pretty much any conflict that they're having, plug in the skills or model them for them, and suddenly a fight that's been going on for 22 years is fixed in 22 minutes.
Whoa. Well, Lenore, it sounds like Max has really delivered a great segue for us to talk about this topic and get to the first question, right?
Definitely.
So this show today is on an amazing topic that every couple needs to pay attention to. At the crossroads of divorce, how your spouse's annoying ways are actually hidden benefits. So, Lenore, should we get to the first question scenario?
Most definitely.
We are nothing alike. Dear Attorney Lenore, my wife and I are very different. I like certain things and she likes other things. We don't agree on what is important and our goals for the future are not the same. I like to stay home and relax, but she always wants to go out and be with friends. I think about saving money for a quiet life, but she wants to live in a big city and have a busy job. We try to talk about it, but we just end up arguing and feeling unhappy. It's really hard to be together when we want such different things. It feels like we are just not right for each other anymore. I'm thinking about maybe should we get a divorce, but it's a big decision and I'm not sure. Can you tell me if you think divorce is a good idea for us, or is there something else we can do to make things better? Sincerely, husband from Mars. I think that's a takeoff from the book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus.
Yes, yeah. Well, here is the perfect example that Max was talking about differences. But as Max was saying, their differences in the beginning must have been very intriguing. They must have been healing. They must have seen in each other something that was missing in their own life that they were looking for, why ever that is. And now it seems like they're coming up against it. And I would definitely say this is worth investigating and going into it deeper, because divorce isn't necessarily the best answer, because, you know, wherever you find yourself, there you are. Whatever baggage they brought into this marriage, they're going to take it with them. And it might be a good idea for them to figure out what that is before they just cut ties. And Max, you know, what are your insights here? I'm really interested to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, well, I tuned right into the anymore. It seems like we don't belong together anymore. So they did belong together in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That difference, when they were getting the benefit of it, was really attractive to them. So here's an interesting statistic I say to a lot of my clients. On average, first marriages last 7.5 years. Second marriages last 18 months, and third marriages last less than that. Mm-hmm. Now, what most people think is they just chose the wrong person. But if that were the case, don't you think second marriages would work way better if it was all about choice? But as you said, Lenore, they bring themselves into the second marriage. And there's something about that difference that was such a turn on for each of them in the beginning, that they lasted for a while they were open-hearted and open-minded, being excited about each other. And the problem with leaving a marriage because of difference is they're very likely to pick someone with the same difference. I used to have a fourth grade teacher who used to say that all the time, same difference. They're likely to pick someone with the same difference. And as soon as they realize that, they're going to try to get out earlier, which is why second marriages end earlier. And they'll do it again in their third marriage. So Lenore, I agree with you. I think that my approach to this conflict is to explore what the needs are that each of you are bringing that are so different, that in some ways are meeting each other's needs. And the wonderful thing that NVC does is it separates out what we call needs from strategies. So the need is what it is your heart desires, but it doesn't refer to action, and it doesn't refer to the other person. So for instance, I have a need for contact, but there's a million ways that I can get contact with another person. Each of those are different strategies. And what happens when we bring these unconscious, especially what I call forbidden needs, the needs that went consistently unmet when we were little in our family of origin, we bring not only the hurt of the need, but also what I call a sticky strategy, the way we have tended to get it met, especially when we were alone. And what you need to do as soon as you start getting into conflict is not let go of the other person, and not let go of the need, but let go of the strategy and share the need. So I'm noticing that I'm feeling lonely a lot here because I have such a great need for connection with you. And my go-to strategy is to tell you, we're not going to move to the city. I don't want you to take that big job. I want you to be in the house all the time, which is what he wanted from his mom. But this isn't his mom. He picked somebody who's really active because he wants that in his life. And so how can he get his need for connection made at the same time that she's getting her need for excitement and empowerment made? And the next step isn't conflict. It's co-creating a strategy that works together. That's why I call my practice teamwork mediation. They need to start working as a team, because if you're on opposite teams, you're on conflict. If you're on the same team, you can solve pretty much any problem at the need level when you're co-creating solutions that work for both of you.
I have a question as a woman who was married twice. What I hear you saying, Max, is you may be hungry, but there are many ways to feed your appetite. It doesn't always have to be pizza, which is what your parents gave you when you were young. It could be filet mignon. It could be lobster. It could be various ways to feed that need to eat, to no longer feel hungry. And there are multiple ways to do it. And if I tell my spouse the only way to meet my need is through pizza, then we have a conflict if he shows up with filet mignon.
Right, exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and to take that example one step further, we're vegans now, but when my wife and I were first together, she was very into sushi and I was very into pizza. And so we decided to alternate. So we go to a pizza place and I'd be really happy and she'd be miserable. And then we go to a sushi place and she'd be happy and I'd be miserable. And we started to use this process on it. And eventually I found a shopping center that had a Japanese restaurant and a pizza restaurant in it and some outdoor dining. And so she would get her sushi, I would get my pizza, and we would eat together, both really delighted. Now, that's not a strategy that would have ever showed up in my family of origin, but it really works because both of us felt cared about, respected, and satisfied.
I love that.
Wow, that's beautiful.
It really is. Okay. Well, with that said, Lenore, how about we go to the next question, next scenario?
Yeah, I can't wait.
Okay. I can't take it anymore. Dear Attorney Lenore, I'm so angry I could spit. I just found out that my husband has been hiding money. He has a lot of money in a bank account and I didn't have access to. All these years he has been telling me we don't have enough money and that I spend too much, but he was stockpiling this money the whole time. I am so mad at him that I can't even look at his face. He is a liar and dishonest. I trusted him and he broke that trust. I want a divorce and I want it now. Sincerely, Tripped.
Wow. Money is one of the biggest reasons people get divorced, and people's relationship to money, definitely comes from their family of origin, and definitely represents a lot of different things. I mean, here trust is a big thing that, if you can't be honest with one another, then what else has been hidden? Money is control, it's power, it's validation. This is all big stuff here, big stuff, and it is a big reason people get divorced. So, Max, I can't wait to hear you weigh in on this one.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm not hearing in this question is whether or not they've tried to have conversations about that. I hear the same thing with infidelity issues. It seems like it's the sex and the money, but it's actually the honesty and the trust. It's really the communication, which is why that's what my practice is. I teach communication skills. So if these folks came in for the first time, they'd have the opportunity to actually talk about this. And I think that what we'd find is that money means something different to the two of them. It's one of the really interesting things about difference. Difference doesn't have to be like so different. It's about two completely different things. Money itself can mean two different things to each other. So you just assume it means the same thing to the other person that it does to you. And this is what I was talking about, that deeper level of communication skill to be able to talk about what this is about. So I think it's so interesting to choose to get a divorce without actually having the conversation, getting down to what this actually means to each of you, and then rebuilding the trust. Now, in my model, in NVC, trust is not the weaponized trust that we use in the broader culture. You violated my trust. I can pin you to the wall now, and you were wrong and I'm right. Being right you basically have a choice between being right or being in relationship. And so trust in NVC is if you consistently meet a need of mine, I start to trust I'm going to be getting that need met here. And if you consistently don't meet a need of mine, I start trusting that need is not going to get met here. So how do you repair trust? You figure out what the need is in yourself and in your partner. You communicate at the need level without even talking about strategy, without even talking about the past. And then co-create strategies together about how both of your needs around money can get met. And once you start to do that consistently, it actually only takes somewhere around 3 to 5 instances of having a good conversation and outcome about even something as big as this or infidelity. The anger begins to melt away, and the need, although it's always will remain special, because when a need like for money or fidelity shows up, it shows it's a big need for one or both parties. But it turns out when you start to meet someone's big forbidden need consistently, it forms the strongest bond that you can have between any two people. It's the safest way to avoid divorce. And so what I would like to see with this couple is them having some great, honest, what I call quiet, truthful conversations about what this need around money is. begin to co-create strategies together, start meeting each other's needs, and watch how quickly what looked like it was the razor's edge of killing the relationship turns out to be the strongest bond that these two will have ever had.
You know what, Lenore? I once heard Max say that there should be a rule that couples can't get divorced if they're angry. Have you ever heard Max say that, Lenore?
No, I haven't, but I think it's a wonderful rule, because that's kind of what mediation does. It takes the anger out of it, and makes it a conversation. And I think that's a wonderful theory. It is the exact opposite of how a lot of people get divorced in court, because that really turns up the heat. That really inflames people. That really emphasizes conflict and differences.
Yeah. And this woman is clearly angry. She says, I'm so angry I could spit. So I'm just curious about Max's theory on couples. There should be a rule that you can't get married while divorced while you're angry.
Yeah, Lenore, one of the things I really respect about what you do is cooling the conversation down, even when a couple has committed to divorce. What I say to my clients is, if you were raging angry, would you buy a new car? Would you put a down payment on a house? No, you wouldn't make big life decisions if you're angry. Well, is there a bigger life decision than who's going to be your family? And yet, because people get into this cycle of having their needs not met, not knowing why or how to get them met, their despair. I mean, what I really hear in her is not as much anger as it is sadness. Sadness also often shows up as anger because it feels safer, although it's actually way more dangerous than showing sadness and being vulnerable enough to talk about what this really means to you. So even if they made it to Lenore, when the anger cooled off and they talked about what was really going on, there's still the possibility of resolution. And the proper resolution may be that their relationship to money is so different that it doesn't make sense for them to be sharing that part of their life together, and maybe divorce is right. But doing it from a place of anger means you never really did find out what it either meant to you or meant to them, and you run the risk of redoing this with the next person if you don't understand.
Very, very true. Very true.
That was a good answer.
Mhm.
All right, Lenore, should we go to the next question?
Yes.
All right, we're moving right along. She triggers me on purpose, dear attorney Lenore. My wife and I have been married for 22 years. And for 20 of those years, something has really been bothering me. My wife does things on purpose to make me angry. She makes comments about me that she knows will upset me. For example, she often says how I'm not good at my job because if I were, I would be director level by now, even though she knows that makes me really mad. I'm tired of feeling this way. Every time she does something like this, we end up fighting and I walk out. I don't deserve this. I can do better all by myself. Sincerely, tired of the triggers.
Wow. Well, that's, every marriage that comes to divorce, this is the story. And again, it's those 5 unmet needs that get triggered, and people don't even realize it. There's reasons why she feels the need to taunt him like that, and there's reasons why he feels so betrayed and upset by that. But it sounds like neither one of them have really done their work to figure out what that is. And 22 years is a big investment, and it's really interesting that he said 22 years they were married and only 20 of them she was saying something that's really bothering me. So I think this goes back to what Max was saying about that beginning period where they're so in love and they're meeting one another's needs, and then something goes off the rails. And again, it sounds like this is something that if they did their work, there's a lot to be saved here. What are your thoughts, Max? I can't wait to hear.
Well, this is kind of a classic example of one of the first sentences in one of my chapters is your relationship is happening in the present, but your conflicts are happening in the past and the future. So the past doesn't exist except in our memory as story. And the same is true of the future. So this is a classic example of what I often see, that couples come to me in a story of actually two stories of their own making, that neither one of them recognize themselves in the other person's story, but they don't know how to get out from under it because it's the part that's been written for them. And regardless of what line they say from their story, when it goes across the neutral zone between them and lands inside the other person's story, the meaning of it changes, and they can't get their meaning across into the other person. Meaning, by the way, is another synonym for needs. So it's important to find out what it means to the other person, rather than to assume that you know what it means to them and that therefore they're doing it on they're doing it on purpose. I mean, often when somebody says that in an early session, I'll say, well, we have the expert right here. Let's find out whether they're actually trying to trigger you or not. And of course they always say, no, I wasn't. In this case, this one was just saying, I'm trying to encourage him because I think he's so great and he's being passed over, and I really want to see him being respected. That's what's really coming on from her. And he's saying, see, she's just trying to trigger me. And when she says this wonderful, loving statement, do you think he goes, oh, that's so nice, I was misunderstanding it? No, you know what he says is, see, she's just trying to trigger me. because inside of a story, it's not the words that are coming. It's in communication, the words are like 20% of what comes across. The rest of it is what's going on non-verbally, with body language, and also inside of us with all of our historic understandings and misunderstandings. One of the things that I do when I'm teaching large groups is I say to the group, I want you to stand up. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to turn around and find 3 brown things on the back wall, which I'm looking at. I'm going to give you 5 seconds. We'll store enough information about them so that when I turn back and I ask any one of you to name one thing and describe it, I'll know which thing you're talking about. Okay, stand up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Sit down. I say, okay, I'd like some volunteers, and hands always go up. I say, could somebody please describe for me one blue thing on the back wall? And all the hands go down. I say, what's the matter? And they said, you said brown. I said, I know what I said. But now I'm asking about blue. Does anybody here think there's no blue on the back wall? Because I'm looking at it. And I see plenty of things that are blue. So there were 200 of you here. You just spent doing nothing but looking for 5 seconds. And 200 of you can't think of a single blue thing that's there. And the reason is because I told you to look for brown. Well, what if you give yourself the assignment to look for everything your partner does wrong? And then we break your head open and look in your database for all the things they did right, for all the blue stuff. You know what? There's nothing there. So on each side of this argument, they're not making stuff up. What they have done is filtered their experience based on the story that they're living. So give yourself the assignment, if you're feeling like your partner is trying to trigger you, give yourself the assignment to find all the things that your partner does right and compliment them on it. And you may not even need me.
having such a visceral response to this as a twice married woman.
Yeah.
And it's forgive me, but I'm lost in this. Like it starts out so lovely. It starts out so positive, so partnership oriented, so ooh and gooey and delicious. What in the world happens that makes it just go so wrong? I mean, I don't understand this part, and I really would like to understand it, having been married. And according to your statistics, I'm really doomed here. If I get married a third time, less than 18 months. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Can you just get on a fifth grade level
Yeah.
before we do the next? I really want to respect our time. But could you just explain, break it down on a fifth grade level? Like what in the world goes wrong when it all seems so right? Honeymoon is beautiful. Wedding ceremony is wonderful. And then also please define NVC. You've said that a few times tonight. I want to make sure people understand what that is.
Okay. So first of all, this goes back to your childhood. Children are just a bundle of needs, right? And they have the expectation that every one of their needs are going to be met the moment they're stimulated or they scream bloody murder. And your parents do their best to try to meet all of your needs, but inevitably some of your needs are going to consistently go unmet. It starts to feel like that need is just forbidden to you. I mean, you can see other people getting it, but you're not getting it. And each of us have this little pile, and they're unique to each one of us. Each of us have a little pile of needs that went consistently unmet when we were little. And they're stored in our unconscious. Now, when we were little, we weren't ashamed to ask. We asked and we asked and we asked and we asked, and the answer was always the same. No, you can't have that. And there's lots of reasons for that. Your parents didn't know how to do that. There was financial stuff, there was gender stuff, there was cultural stuff, there was religious stuff. There's lots of reasons why it happened. But each of us, it did happen to each one of us. And so one of the things that attracts you to another person is someone who meets those needs without your having to ask. That's the forbidden quality of it. That's what the infatuation period is. That's why you'll notice in each of these questions, the first couple of years are going fine. Because in the first couple of years during the infatuation period, we give so freely of ourselves to this new love that they don't have to ask. And since they picked us because we're good at meeting those forbidden needs, we just naturally meet them. But there comes a time, somewhere between 18 months and 4 years, depending upon the circumstances of the relationship, where the need arises again because now you've been getting it met. So you're letting that need show up. But the other person isn't meeting it automatically without asking. And so now you have to ask. But it's forbidden to ask. And so you're in a real double bind because needs never go away once they've been stimulated until they get met. And so it becomes a tremendous yearning inside of yourself. You need to speak it, but you can't speak it. And so the unconscious, remember, this is the part of you that makes your dreams, all this wild imagery that has all this hidden meaning in it. What your unconscious does is it lets you talk about that need backwards. Instead of asking for what you want, you accuse your partner of being bad for not giving you what you didn't ask for. And that judgment, which is the NVC term for this kind of communication, is the source of all conflict and all violence. So if I have a forbidden need, say, for warmth, And so I'm going to pull this incredibly warm person into my life. We're going to be moving in together. She gets a job. She gets really busy. We have a kid, whatever. And I'm not getting that need met anymore. Now I have to ask for it, but for the first time in our relationship, but I can't. And so this is what I say to her. You know, when I first met you, you seem to be a very warm person, but now that I've lived with you for a while, I realize you're actually a cold fish, aren't you? And if you interviewed me in that moment, and I have done this, I would say to you, wow, what a great job I just did. I asked for what it was I wanted, and I showed her how important it was to me, by how angry I was, by how much emotional energy I put into it. And so in this tremendously vulnerable state that I'm now in, supposedly, I'm looking for her to like jump all over me and warm me up. And instead, what she says is, who'd want to touch you anyway? Which was actually the message my mother gave me. So by communicating my need as a judgment of the other person, judgment means calling the other person bad or wrong. By using a judgment, just the form of communicating my need, I have recreated my family of origin, the dysfunction of my family of origin. And I'm really good at that because I was raised that way. And I've also set off her family of origin stuff because I've rejected the strength of hers. And now she's used judgment back at me. And that's the beginning of the vicious cycle that begins to tear the fabric of the relationship apart. And what's the basis of it? A deeply held desire to ask a person who was handpicked to be good at that thing, to do that thing, but asking it in a really bad form.
And what's interesting is the statement you. In mediation, we always say speak in I statements. Yeah. I need this, not you did this. Right. And when you're speaking from where you are, the person isn't going to feel attacked, isn't going to be defensive, and they're going to respond, because if she's that warm, loving person and she's hardwired to be a nurturer, and you're saying, I need nurturing, whoa, she's going to be right there to meet it. But if you call her the last thing she'd ever want to be in this world, a cold fish, yeah, wow.
Yeah, people described in a way that they don't recognize themselves. And that's exactly what a judgment is, calling somebody a thing that they don't recognize and starting the hurt cycle. Yeah. And so the answer to the question what NVC is, nonviolent communication, essentially what Marshall noticed is that when you get right down to it, everything we say and everything we do is an attempt to get our life-affirming, beautiful needs met. And so if you understand that that's what's going on, if the other person says something that doesn't sound beautiful and life-affirming, you're obviously missing something, either in the way they communicated it or in the way you listened to it. And so we have 3 sets of skills: identifying your needs, learning how to speak them in a way that it sounds like you're inviting the other person into me to see, and also learning how to listen for the needs when the other person's caught in story, which we call empathy. And then I add a 4th piece, which is mediation. Once you've got these 2 sets of needs out on the table, what do you do about that? We don't really know in this culture. Look at what's going on in the political world. Even people in the same party, if you disagree on one issue, you are the enemy. So NVC is about, mediation is about getting the benefit of difference. It's the perfect tool to add into NVC.
Lenore, may I ask Max one more question before we go to the next scenario?
Oh, no, please do. Yes.
At our last show, maybe even the show before that, I can't quite remember, Lenore, you can correct me, but we brought up another guest brought up unmet needs. And I think we gave it a number, 5 unmet needs. And so I want to ask, are there core unmet needs that show up over and over again within the couple's dynamic, or are those needs so vast you really can't name them? They just, on an as is basis, deal with them?
Yes to both.
Okay.
So there are 5 needs that can be met without any action taking place. So without you having to do anything different in the situation or reality. So, because everybody has a need to be seen and heard and understood and respected and know that they and their needs matter.
They matter.
They matter. So you can meet all of those with presence, with opening your heart and caring about them, listening to them, seeing them, not wishing they were who you wish they were, but actually seeing them, by really listening to them, by being respectful and by knowing that their needs matter as much as yours do. Marshall said there is no hierarchy of needs. The tiniest little need in you may be a life-threatening need in your partner in the way that it matters. So one of the great things about relationship is it's an opportunity to experience difference, to do the healing that we need to do so that we can relate to all of the difference that there is in the world. And you can see right now what's going on out in the world. This is the skill that's missing, which is why I call this my world change work. We're working on the atom of society. The couples are the atom of society. My little sister just retired from teaching 2nd grade, and she said in the last 5 years, the kids have been coming in less and less socialized, fighting more, being able to pay attention less. We are moving in exactly the wrong direction. We need to be going from the atom of society as a healed entity, understanding the truth and beauty of love, and then spreading that up. Because by the 3rd session, I have my clients coming in going, this stuff works at work also. This with my boss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
With my child, with my children.
Yeah, right. Well, I've said that this before, and I know we have to go on to our question, but I do this work because the children are our building blocks. And if they don't see what a healthy relationship looks like, they're not going to be able to replicate it in any area of their life. And it spreads, it's toxic to everyone. So, yeah, we're planting seeds.
And I'll tell you that one of the byproducts of my working with couples with teenagers is they stop having their fight by the 3rd or 4th session. And then they hear their fight going on in the house with their teenagers. Because it's not what you tell your teenagers, that's what you're teaching them. It's what you show them. And they come to me and say, can you mediate our kids? Can you teach them this? And yes, I can, because teenagers are learning the language of relationship. It's the perfect time for them to be learning NVC. And it only takes 1 or 2 sessions for the kids to be able to communicate now the way that they're seeing their parents modeling it this new way.
Well, I think we have time for only one more scenario here. Okay. Let's go for it. I don't feel like I know him anymore. Dear Attorney Lenore, I have been married to my husband for 10 years, but now I feel like I don't know him anymore. He has changed a lot and does things that are so different from before. Like, he used to enjoy spending time with me and talking about our day, but now he just wants to be alone or with his friends. He doesn't talk to me much and seems like a different person. I am not happy with how things are, but I also don't know what I want. I just know that I don't want to keep feeling this way in our marriage. I'm so confused. Should I try to fix our marriage, or is it better to think about getting a divorce? Sincerely, there's a stranger in my house.
Wow. I think this is every scenario of a divorce. You know, people start shutting down and avoiding. People avoid those sore spots, and they stop exposing themselves to people who it might feel like salt in their wounds. And I mean, it sounds like there's so much that could be here to be saved, but again, communication. And it's amazing how many couples struggle with communication. So, Max, share some more of your wisdom. I'm learning so much here. I really am.
Well, so the part of the sentence that gets me is, I also don't know what I want. You know what you get if you don't know what you want? It's not what you want. So what I usually do in the second session, after I teach them some of the basics of NVC, is I say to each person, okay, I'm a magician. I'm a marriage magician, and I can get you anything that you want. Tell me what you want. Between them and their partner that's created stress and arguments. But I say, I can't get you what you don't want. Tell me what it is you do want. And just like this lady, they say the same thing. I don't know anymore. That's really the starting place for refreshing their marriage at this point. She needs to identify what it is that she's wanting, and she needs to ask for it in NVC language, not as a judgment of what he's done wrong or isn't doing right, but as a beautiful, intimate request for what it is her heart really does desire. And what I tell my clients is, in this culture, that's the hardest part of the process. In a capitalist hierarchical culture, it benefits the culture at large if we don't know what we want. Because the person who does know what they want, when they're told that they have to work on the weekend or something, are likely to say no. They're likely not to buy the 5 pairs of jeans when they already have jeans, just because it's a new style. So the culture kind of keeps us from knowing what it is that we want. And that's the maturing process. I call the end of my process the mature relationship. And in the mature relationship, what you're asking for isn't what you think you should ask for. It's what it is your heart really does desire. And change does happen. It's the one constant. So her husband probably has changed. But one thing's for sure, he is getting his needs met in other ways. So he does have needs still for connection and communication, but he's not getting them met from her at this point. And so she needs to get curious about what his needs are and how he likes to get them met at this point in his evolution. She needs to understand what it is that she's wanting and communicate that. And what I can guarantee is, at the end of 6 sessions in this relationship with me, they'll each be able to say, I understand myself and my needs better than I ever have. And I feel like I know what it is that your needs are and what it is that you're wanting out of marriage. And then one of 2 endings to that sentence. Either, therefore, I redouble my commitment to this marriage, or, therefore, it doesn't actually make sense for this to be our primary relationship anymore. We've kind of outgrown each other. And either one of those can be the quiet, truthful answer to that question. But you can't know that until you know yourself, share it with your partner, and really listen to them and let the 5 needs of theirs be met before any change happens, so that the 2 of you are on the same team, being intimate with each other, sharing what's inside of you, and then see what's true about where your marriage has grown into.
Okay, Max, I hear several voices in my ear chattering, saying, well, wait, am I responsible for meeting all of his needs? I mean, I'm only one person, for crying out loud. Can you get some of those needs met someplace else?
Sure, and he is right now. He's getting all of them met someplace else, so he's not putting any pressure on you. But you're wanting the delight. Marshall says we're hardwired to enjoy meeting each other's needs. So
All of them? All of them?
no, you only need to meet the needs of his that meet a need of yours to meet.
Oh.
So, in my wife and I, we say, would it be pleasurable for you if we did this? And if the answer is no, that may mean one of two things. One is I may need to do that somewhere else with someone else, or there may be a different way to do it that would also meet a need of hers. No, in this system, each of you are living as close to who you truly are as you can possibly know. I've been married now for 22 years, and our relationship has gone way beyond any place I thought relationship could go. And each of us are more our individual selves and more the cheerleader for each other, getting the full spectrum of our partner, getting their full spectrum of their needs, while they're cheerleading us, getting the full spectrum of ours, and us each meeting only the needs that we delight in meeting in each other. That's what creates such a delicious relationship. No obligation, just delight.
Wow. He used the word delicious, Attorney Lenore. Did you hear that?
I heard it. I heard it. I did.
If every couple could use that term, this was delicious, I think we would save a lot of marriages from divorce, Attorney Lenore, and then that would mean
so.
You would have to do something different.
That's okay. I have lots of other things I could do too. I mean, I love helping people, but there's lots of other things I love to do as well.
I know.
And people do outgrow each other, especially if they met when they were really young. I had a number of relationships. They weren't marriages, but when I was younger, each one of them had one important lesson for me over the few years that we were together. And by the time I met my wife when I was 50, she had done a lot of that kind of work, and I had done a lot of that work on myself. And it was the first time either of us were ready to commit to somebody for life, because we were two grown-up, mature individuals ready to do this next piece. How did two strong individuals create a love relationship with each other? And it's been a delight learning how to do that.
You know what? I just had this idea, and then we'll close up this show. It would be very, very interesting if Max, the mediator, and Attorney Lenore, the divorce mediator, got together and did this program, workshop, whatever you want to call it, for couples considering marriage. And you all put forth, here's how it can work, and here's what you do when it doesn't work. Because the truth of the matter is, at some point, for some, it's not going to work. But at least before you say, I do, what you might be getting yourself into and how you can potentially make it work, especially before kids get all involved. I mean, we need a mediation mindset before you say, I do.
Definitely. And I think
I'm putting it out there.
Oh, yeah. People don't have conversations that they should have. They talk about a lot of things that really are inconsequential to a happy marriage. They look at the package, not what's inside. And I think I agree with Max. People have to do a lot of their own work and discover who they are and what they need well before they get married. It takes some of us longer than others. I was, 36 when I met my husband. And I know I was not ready to get married to anybody I met before then. So I think that's important. I think people don't realize the real reasons you should get married. And sometimes people get married because they have to, or they think it's right, and again, it comes down to role models. So I'd love to do anything with Max. I think he just it's so simplistic and so deep and rich the way you explain things, Max. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, what we say about NVC is that it's simple, but not easy.
No, exactly.
Well,
And
Lenore, I'm your show producer, so I might have to make something happen here with you and Max, taking it to another level here. I'm just
that's why I love you, Pam.
well, Pam, I think we're doing exactly the thing we need to do, because I used to have a coupon as a wedding gift, 3 sessions for a couple that's going to get married. But, when you got two 18-year-olds or 26-year-olds who are deeply in love, it seems insulting to tell them that they need to learn about marriage and divorce. And so what we really need to do is to create a stream of consciousness in the culture that marriage is not this easy thing that you just do because it feels good, and it's not a skill-based process, and that the ones that end in divorces, it's not going to be mine. That's just people who didn't do it well. I think the message that Lenore and I are putting out here just needs to filter out into the ether so that the culture has a more mature understanding of what love and marriage is really about.
Yeah,
very true.
I agree.
Very true.
Well, this has been great. So, Max,
Yes.
why don't you tell us how to reach you?
Yeah, so my website is themarriagemediator.net. You can read about me. You can watch some videos of clients talking after sessions. By the way, I guarantee my first session. I always hated going to a new therapist and not having any chemistry and still having to pay them. So if at the end of the first session with me, either you or your partner or I feel like there wasn't value in the session or it wasn't the right process for you, there's no charge for that session. I tend to do a maximum of 6 sessions, even less actually now that I have the book. You can get my book at my website. My book is called Loving Conflict. And my email address is maxrivers@aol.com. I'd love to meet any of you that are either having challenges or a larger and larger population of people who are coming to me are now people who are not in crisis, but are starting to recognize that they don't have the full skill set that they need, and they want to up-level their communication. And those are my favorite clients.
Well, Max, can you just point to your book? Looks like it's behind your across your shoulder for those who may not. Yes, lovely. Get that book. All right, thank you.
Yes.
And Lenore, how about you tell us how we can access you?
So anyone who is watching this show either live or later, they can contact me for a 60-minute consultation at a discount for $100. I normally charge $350. So I can see how I can help them in the place where they are to, if need be, peacefully divorce.
Nice. Well, that ends it for our show tonight or today. Thank you so much, Max, for joining us, and everyone who had a chance to watch and listen and hopefully learn a lot.